Welcome everybody to another Double Game Week 23 reaction stream. We're going to talk about that game week as well as what's happened so far in Double Game Week 22, where we have one more game between Manchester United and Leeds, who just sacked their manager Jesse Marsch, and of course Man United and Leeds will play each other yet again in Game Week 23. But of course we all care about the double right now for Manchester United, especially those who triple captain Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford. So far so good. This is already my best triple captaincy ever. I have a very poor track record with the chip. I wanted to use it on Salah last year, but had to use the wild card and ended up using it when he played against Brighton, got injured just after scoring a penalty and all of that stuff, which we talked about before. Don't want to go through that trauma again. And yeah, the worst one was Sadio Mane a few years ago. But enough about that. Let's talk about how we've been doing so far in Game Week 22 and our plans for Double Game Week 23. Of course, a lot could change by the next stream, but it's good to get some initial thoughts and you can compare how you maybe presented some ideas now compared to later in the week. So that's what we're doing here. And also let me know, would you rather see a reaction stream straight after all the kind of initial games are done? So maybe after the Spurs Man City game yesterday, or would you rather have maybe a day or two afterwards to then do the reaction stream? I'd be interested to see your thoughts, but let's get straight into your questions and comments. As always, it's good to see a decent number of you here already. Welcome Patrick. Hi Dylan, I'm on 79 points this week. Same here. And inside the top 100k and still got Rashford, triple captain, Shaw and De Gea left to play. Really good stuff. We've got the same points, but a different Man United trio. You've got De Gea, I've got Bruno Fernandes. We both have that triple captaincy. It's good to see you're in the top 100k. I'm literally just outside it, but very similar situations there, even though we might have one or two different players. It's good to see, and hopefully you keep on going and get to 90 or even 100 points this week. Welcome, Akko. Always a pleasure. Same with Cyril, long-time viewer of this channel. Welcome Mumchill from Bulgaria. Greetings, thank you very much. On 81 with Rashford triple captain, still have Shaw, Bruno and Rashford to go. Really good stuff there, Christian, and it's good to see some nice scores around here as well. If Newcastle didn't concede, I'd be on cloud 9, yeah. That's the thing. I actually benched the... Let me try and think of this. Am I actually saying it right? Yeah, the only defender to keep a clean sheet this week so far is Cucurella, and I benched him. Third on my bench, but at least I had that Kepa 10-pointer there. With that, Malice says, here for the music as well. Thank you very much. One, best City defender, says Amar. I'd say Ake, closely followed by Akanji, but I think Diaz and Laporte could also come into the side. But even if they do, I would expect Ake to start as a left-back or even as a left centre-back. So I think he's the most nailed-on option. I'd go for him. Odegaard or Nketiah, the same as last week. I would say Martin Odegaard. Thank you, John. Always good to see you, and thank you very much for the shout-out. And good evening to you as well, Amar, as well. Hopefully you saw the answer to your question too. 26 degrees and sunny in St. Pete, Florida. Wow, a bit jealous. It was quite sunny here at least, and wasn't too cold, but nowhere near as warm as that. Welcome, Mr. Iceman. Greetings to you as well. Selling De Gea, United can't keep a clean sheet. I think that's maybe a bit overreactionary. Now, I don't think De Gea, when I'm looking at the three best Man United assets, that includes Bruno Fernandes, Rashford and Shaw in my opinion, but I would say De Gea is probably the fourth best, and United have kept a lot of clean sheets since the World Cup, and actually throughout the whole season in all competitions they've kept one of the most as well. Of course, Newcastle have the best defence when you look at this point in the season in the Premier League, but I still think United have a decent defence, but you'd obviously rather go for their attackers if possible. I'm on 72 with 3 United players and triple captain in my back pocket for this game week. Really good stuff. I'm guessing it's going to go on one man only, despite his blank. And the first time he's actually not had a shot in the Premier League against Tottenham Hotspur. Haaland was completely anonymous. No service for him whatsoever, but I would expect him to get a few goals in that double game week too. Oh, Shankly says, considering the current situation on Man City, should I triple captain Haaland? If I didn't use it this week, I probably would be using on Haaland in Game Week 23. And the main reason why is because later in the season, you're going to have some major double game weeks, of course, but there might be a clash there with other chips. You might want to use a wild card, your free hit, or even your bench boost. So then maybe that limits you to a smaller double game week. But then there's no guarantee Man City will have another double game week, let alone maybe one that's as promising as this in terms of minutes as well. You'd expect Haaland to start against Aston Villa and Arsenal. That might not be the case later in the season. There's a lot of things to consider, basically. But I ultimately used it this week on Rashford because Rashford's in form. He's got 2 great fixtures. I expect him to start both and a few reasons like that. So I would probably use it right now on Haaland if I hadn't used it already. I love the post reaction. It's always better to sleep on it. My life motto. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, sometimes even I fall victim to this as well. Just after a game or something's happened, you do come up with some very reactionary parts. Of course, it's a reaction stream, and it's good to maybe discuss things, maybe kind of correct each other when we're maybe going a bit too far, maybe when we're correct about something. But yeah, I also like maybe waiting a day or two sometimes. Patrick also says, use my 2 free transfers on Doherty, Rodrigo out for Saka and Gabriel. Is it worth doing a -4 for De Gea to Edison to have free City for the double and a good keeper in Game Week 25? Really good question, and I actually will discuss Edison in a possible transfer tips video coming up very soon. And my gut feeling is no. Yes, Edison's got a double, and he also has a great game in 25 against Bournemouth, whilst United obviously blank. But at the same time, Edison's ceiling is 6-7 points, and he might get a clean sheet against Aston Villa, but do you think he'll also get one against Arsenal? And let's say, for example, he does, you would also need De Gea to blank for that hit to really pay off in the immediate short term, and you might be able to do this transfer for free in Game Week 24 or 25. So if you were to maybe get rid of De Gea, I would do it in 25 for free. I don't think it's worth taking a hit for a goalkeeper this week. And if you were to take a hit, it would be for a midfielder or attacker, ideally, especially for Arsenal, Man City. You know, most of the best assets they have are in the midfield position. So I honestly wouldn't do that. Should I play my wildcard for Game Week 23? Difficult for me to say without knowing your team. If you've got a lot of fires to put out, maybe 6-7 players you want to change, then yes, I would probably use it. But ideally, I would maybe save it for Game Week 28 to 33. There's going to be a lot of blanks and double game weeks in that period, and I think the wildcard could work really well in conjunction with the bench boost, for example, and also as part of a strategy to maybe use the free hit in a few weeks' time and also target the other game weeks in between. 74 points, current rank 40k, same United triple as you, really good stuff. And like I said, a lot of good scores around, 70 plus points basically from everyone else I've read as well, and a really solid rank there too. Yeah, I'll be honest, I think I remember someone asking me, should I bench Ben Me or someone else? I think I said bench Ben Me. That's why sometimes it's just so difficult to get all these spot on. And, when the goal went in for Ben Me, I was like, oh, damn, I think I said to someone to go for someone else instead. These things can happen. Ben Me's now got 3 goals this season. He's one of the top scoring defenders. Brentford are getting a lot of clean sheets. I think that's 3 in a row now for them. So fair play to anyone who maybe started him, and those that may be benched, I don't really blame you. I thought Southampton would score. Brentford would win maybe 2 or 3-1, but I thought that Southampton would get a goal there. Would you go for Odegaard or Saka for double game week 23? Really close call. Just like last week, I would still go for Odegaard. Just because of the bonus points, 18 compared to Saka's 9. In the Everton game, though, Odegaard was very lacklustre, and I think Saka was probably the best Arsenal player on the day. Obviously, just a one-off. Odegaard's been probably Arsenal's player of the season, or at least a contender, but I would go for Odegaard if I had to pick one. Ideally, you'd go for both. Hey Dylan, on 90 points, that's a really good score. Already with the United triple, got some points from Ben Mee. Well, I mean, that probably explains it there. When you've got Ben Mee scoring and getting a ridiculous points haul, you just know things are going right for you. So fair play. Welcome, Dian. Good to see you. Would you sell Martinelli? I would only sell Martinelli for a Mahrez, Odegaard or Saka, and that would be for free. I would not take a hit for any of them, I think. And would I sell Martinelli for anyone else in the midfield, apart from De Bruyne as well? No. So that would be my answer. I'd only sell Martinelli if it's for free, and also if it's for an Arsenal or Man City midfielder. Otherwise, I probably would just keep him. Might get Ake, but they consider about Stones. I mean, this is the thing, though. Even with Stones, they weren't keeping too many clean sheets. I think Man City have just maybe chopped and changed a bit too much for our liking. And you saw some maybe ridiculous selections by Guardiola, benching De Bruyne, just a few things that seem a bit out of place. It's been some time now that Diaz has been available, still not starting games. I think they are a stronger defense with Stones. I think the best partnership they have defensively is Stones and Diaz, maybe with Ake now as the left back and Rico Lewis or Walker as the right back, but I still don't think Man City have settled on their best 11 from their current squad. Welcome, Neil. Good to see you. -6 degrees watching from Canada. Wow, yeah, that's completely opposite of here. It's like 10 degrees, but feels quite warm. But yeah, hopefully you're coping well with the cold there. I'm on 91, another really good score. With triple captain activated with Rashford, Bruno, Shaw remaining. You're going to get 100 points surely. Hopefully you haven't jinxed it, but you have a really good chance of that. Especially against Leeds, you could say manager bounce, but are they going to appoint a manager in time? That's going to be another big question. I don't think so. I think they'll probably appoint someone by the time they face each other again in Game Week 23. One on the bench, Keane or Bruno or Rashford? Keane? I'm probably overthinking this. I'm guessing he's the one I'd bench. I'm probably... Who is Keane? Maybe I'm just being stupid. I thought I was a genius for having Casemiro for his recent hauls, then he tried to murder Will Hughes. Yeah, I actually saw some United fans saying that it wasn't a red card, the angle shows whatever. Well, from what I saw, it's a red card. Whenever you have, hands around someone, it's a red card. So, yeah, I think Casemiro forgot he isn't playing for Real Madrid, should I say. Saka or Odegaard, like I said earlier, I'd go for Odegaard, but it's a really close call. I think either one will do. Ideally, you'd have both. If I had to pick one, it would be Martin Odegaard, simply for the bonus points. What do you think about Rashford for Mahrez in the upcoming game week? It's not too bad. I mean, when you look at the next few weeks, obviously Rashford plays Leeds, but in a few weeks' time, he blanks in 25. Mahrez obviously plays against Bournemouth. And I actually like that Mahrez was subbed off early against Spurs because that puts some people off from buying him. I'm still really keen on him for the double game week. I probably wouldn't sell Rashford though, not now. If anything, sell him in 25, but ideally you would have him after that blank in 25 and have him for the rest of the season, basically. He is one of the very best FPL options right now. Yeah, we went through that just already. Ben Mee for England. I mean, if he continues this, he has a chance of getting into the squad. But then again, you could argue maybe not. There's a lot of favour with Mings, Maguire, and a few other defenders. But you never know. I don't think Tomori or White are that highly rated by Southgate. So he has a chance, I guess. But I don't think he'd start any games. Sell Trippier or Shaw? I'd rather sell Luke Shaw. I still think Newcastle have a better defence, and I think they'll keep more clean sheets. Of course, you could argue that the fixtures aren't as good as Man United, but Trippier is the best defender in the game, so I would not sell him if you can afford that. Hey Dylan, I'm having a tough time deciding which triple up is better, Saka, Odegaard, Nketiah, or Gabriel, Odegaard, Nketiah. I think for the short term, it would be the triple up in attack with Nketiah, Saka, and Odegaard. Long term, what would I rather have? I mean, this is a tough one because in both cases you have Nketiah, and I do think Saka and Odegaard are the best Arsenal assets. So actually, I'd say Saka, Odegaard, and Nketiah would be my preferred triple up from those you proposed there. Do Mahrez in for Almiron, or is it too early? I would wait a bit. If you're not going to be priced out, I don't think there's any need to make the transfer just yet. I would wait until close to the deadline. If you're absolutely convinced you're going to be priced out, then go for it. But otherwise, I'd be patient if you can. Opinions on KDB? I think he'll start both games in the double. Very surprising to see him benched in some crucial games recently for Man City. I still think he's a good option. He's had some really good performances, maybe not really matched with the goals or assists since coming back from the World Cup. But overall, I think he was looking better before the World Cup in the first half of the season. If I were to go for a Man City midfielder, it would be Mahrez. And ideally, you could argue it's Mahrez, Haaland, and Ake as your ideal Man City triple up. Fernandes for Mahrez for the 23 City double. I am looking at something similar, but still looking to keep Rashford. I think that's a really good move. Who should I get to replace Casemiro? I don't know what your budget is, but I think Odegaard would be very sensible and simple. Saka's another one if you already have Odegaard. So one of those two looks fine. Mahrez as well. I'd go for an Arsenal Man City midfielder this week, especially for replacing Casemiro or Bruno Fernandes. Welcome, Amir. Always a pleasure. Should I sell Salah for Saka for a -4 or keep Salah? I would sell Salah for a -4. He's just not worth the money. I think Saka's a better FPL option. He's got a double game week. Also has a good fixture, you could say. Well, just great fixtures until game week 30. So I would do that. I think it's worth it. Sounds really stupid because, in years gone by, I think that's something I would never have thought I would say, but Salah and Liverpool are just really off it. Which formation is better till game week 28, 3-5-2 or 3-4-3? Really good question. I would still say 3-5-2. In the midfield, you've got Mahrez, Saka, Odegaard, Mitoma. Of course, in Gimmick 25, he blanks, but you've got Rashford as well, and so many different midfielder options. And the forward line, right now, at least for the next 3 or 4 game weeks, I only see maybe 2 or 3. Haaland and Kane for me are lock-ins. Then you could maybe add a possible third. But I honestly would rather go 3-5-2. It really depends on the players you have, but that is my preference. De Bruyne to Mahrez and Martial to Kane for a -4. I will not get rid of De Bruyne for a -4, even if it's to Mahrez. Martial to Kane looks really sensible. If that's your only way to afford Kane, fair enough, I would do the -4, but I wouldn't want to get rid of De Bruyne for a hit this week. Welcome, John Darren. Martinelli and Tony to Nketiah and a midfielder for game week 25 for free. Yeah, I think that looks pretty sensible. The midfielder, Odegaard or Saka would be ideal, if not Mahrez. I'm not sure what your situation is, but that looks pretty good. Yeah, look, I'm not going to take too much credit for that because for me, it's just, I see it as common sense, arguably, because Harry Kane is just one of the best strikers in the league, in the world. Benching him just never sits right with me. I didn't think he'd, score and get 2 bonus points against City per se, but He always has that potential, and he's been so consistent this season. 17 goals, 5 assists in 22 games, amazing underlying numbers. And, you know, Spurs have been very inconsistent, but he's always been at the heart of everything they do. But yeah, it's good to see you started him. I know some people benched him, and I even said in that stream, you know, just try to reconsider because I just don't really see it ending well. I got 2 free transfers. What should I do? Don't know, you know, what your team is, but you know, if you can afford to do something like Martinelli to an Arsenal midfielder, I think that's a decent move to make, or maybe to Riyad Mahrez. But yeah, it's difficult for me to say without knowing your team. Currently, I have 2 City players, Ederson and Haaland. My Game Week 23 team looking good. Roll or go for another City player. You don't need a triple up in Man City, but I think the best option that you don't have is Riyad Mahrez. Then maybe De Bruyne. Since you've already got Ederson, I wouldn't really be that inclined to go for Ake or another Man City defender, so I'd go for Mahrez or De Bruyne. But you don't have to. You honestly don't. Let's see. So I do realize I'm very far behind in the chat. The chat is busier than I thought. So yeah, try to be patient. I will get to your question eventually. Trust me. Fernandes to De Bruyne or Cucurella to Ake Akanji? Really good question. I'd probably do Fernandes to De Bruyne, because De Bruyne obviously has a double in 23 and he doesn't blank in 25 of a really good fixture. The problem is Man City could rotate even more in this period with the Champions League returning as well. And there seems to be, I don't know about a lack of harmony, but a lack of maybe faith in a settled 11 for Man City, which obviously does cause some problems. We still want Bruno back to KDB? Well, for me, it was Mahrez. That was my initial feeling. I think I'm still going to lean towards that right now. That could change as the week progresses. But yeah, the plan was always to get rid of Bruno and get in the Man City midfielder again. But Mahrez is my preference at the moment. Hey, Dylan, keep KDB and Martinelli. Slept through the deadline. Yeah. So yeah, with 2 free transfers, Singh, I probably would be more inclined to do Martinelli to maybe Riyad Mahrez or to Saka Odegaard. I think that would be my preference, because Martinelli has blanked 4 times in a row now, got subbed off for the 60th minute against Everton. I think Trossard's really knocking on the door. Against Everton, I don't think Martinelli was particularly great, but neither was Trossard, actually. And actually, look, I've said a lot that Martinelli's been wasteful, and he has been, but I also think, especially in the Everton game, it was noticeable that the tactics deployed by Arteta and Arsenal, I think it's limiting Martinelli a little bit too much right now. When you look at the right-hand side, there's a real connection between White, Saka and Odegaard. They're always close to each other, finding each other in these nice spaces, and it really allows Saka to thrive. With Martinelli, though, you've got Zinchenko inverting into that midfield role, and he has to really hog the touchline. He's the most wide player in the Arsenal ranks right now, and that is, you know, purely tactical, and he really has to cover for Zinchenko and sometimes Xhaka, who is really offensive this season. So I do think Martinelli, in terms of the tactics, it has limited a little bit, but when you look at it in FPL, you just really want points, and that's as simple as that. But I still think Martinelli can score against Brentford. I have a good feeling about that. But honestly, I think it is worth making a move from him to Odegaard or Saka. Who to sell? Not sure who you have or don't have, mate, but some players to sell, some very simple ones that I wouldn't really think too much about. Chelsea, midfielders like Mount, Darwin Núñez. Still potentially Bruno Fernandes, despite him obviously still being a great option for the next 2 weeks. But Almiron's another one, despite facing Bournemouth. You know, those are some options that you could consider selling for an Arsenal Man City midfielder. I think Martinelli is a hold. The only way I would sell him, like I said earlier in the stream, is to go to Odegaard, Saka or Mahrez, and it would be for free. I would not take a hit to get rid of Martinelli. And that also answers Zaid's question, so hopefully you got that. Who to sell, Bruno to Odegaard or Tony to Nketiah? I'd actually rather do Bruno to Odegaard. I think long-term, that is the better transfer. Leeds manager sacked? Yes, Jesse Marsch got sacked. I think it was reported around the morning or midday, and it was confirmed just a few hours ago. Tony to Darwin? No. I'd rather just keep Tony and bench him, against Arsenal and in Game Week 25. I wouldn't go back to Darwin, honestly. I would stay clear from all Liverpool assets. The only thing that would maybe tempt me, and it won't, is the fact that Liverpool could have some double game weeks very soon. I'm not sure exactly which game week, but maybe 26 or 27. Either way, they could have a double or triple game week, and I still wouldn't be that keen on them right now. They're that bad at the moment. Keep Bruno and don't buy KDB next week. Don't think that's a bad plan, but also think about Game Week 25. So if you decide to keep Bruno, that's completely fine. He has a great record against Leeds, could add to that in 22 and 23, but you might make that move in 25 instead, or go to Riyad Mahrez or maybe another midfielder entirely. But that isn't a bad idea. I think Bruno could actually keep up with KDB over the next 2 or 3 game weeks. And my main concern with KDB and City assets is rotation with the Champions League in mind. Would you sell Andres for Mahrez for a -4 and Martinelli for Odegaard? I think I would, but like I said, I'm not a big fan of selling Martinelli to Odegaard for a hit. If it's for free, perfect. I think that's a good move, but I could see Martinelli outscoring Odegaard, especially in the Brentford game. I don't know why, but if he starts, I have a good feeling about Martinelli in that game. Keeping an eye on Gameweek 25. Who should I bring in? Mings or Moreno in? Or any other defender? Because me and Stones won't be appearing in my lineup for 25. That's completely fine. That makes sense. From those two defenders you mentioned, I probably would rather go for Moreno, but not a big fan of Villa defensively. They just conceded 4 to Leicester, and they can be very, very sus defensively. And Unai Emery, he's done a great job at Villa, but one thing I've never liked about his teams is defensively, they always leave a lot to be desired. At Arsenal, the defence was a mess for a long time. At Villarreal as well, and also at Sevilla, Paris Saint-Germain. I just don't think he has a great track record defensively, so I honestly wouldn't go for a Villa defender, despite some really good fixtures after 25. So yeah, it is difficult. Which defenders do you bring in 25? You know what? I probably would recommend a Spurs defender, Pedro Porro, who I mentioned even before, obviously, the game against City. But I'm a bit concerned about him because Emerson's playing so well right now. So I think he might have to really work hard to get into this team, and it might take him some time still. So if not, Ivan Perisic could be another decent option as well, or another Spurs defender like Dyer. But that's probably where I'd be looking at instead. If United bang like 3 or 4 goals against Leeds, I'll just keep both Bruno and Rashford. Yeah, look, I'll be honest. If United look really impressive against Leeds, and they have been really impressive anyway in the last month or two, then yeah, I would be open to that possibility. But with Mahrez's form in general, I'm still open to going from Bruno Fernandes to Mahrez. And then if I wanted to bring back Bruno Fernandes, I could do that in Gameweek 26. But that is not a bad idea at all. Yeah, the scandal with City, that is another thing that I haven't even mentioned today, but, just came out of nowhere. The first news I saw when I woke up, of course. Yeah, it's just absolutely mind-boggling, the timing of it as well. Salah for KDB or Mahrez? I'd rather go to Mahrez right now. Who to sell short to? It probably would be an Arsenal or City defender. If I had to pick one, it probably would be Zinchenko. Excluding KDB, who's the best Man City asset in midfield and defence? Mahrez. And I would argue Mahrez is better than KDB right now. Defense would be Ake. So Mahrez, then Ake. I think that's a sensible, pair for you. Should I switch Fernandes to De Bruyne? I would make a final decision after Thursday's game, but my gut feeling right now is to make the move to a City midfielder, and I'd go to Mahrez. But if you don't want him or you have him already, then yes, I think I would go for De Bruyne. But definitely, I would caveat that with be very careful. It can backfire, but if I had to lean one way, it would be to make the move. Best Man City defender, Ake right now would be my preference. I think he's the most versatile, so that gives him more possibilities to get into the team. And he's also been their most informed defender with Stones now injured. Triple captain Haaland or Odegaard next game, we'll save it. I think I would triple captain Haaland. I think he'll score maybe 1 or 2 against Villa. You could even add 1 against Arsenal. His performances in the away games, the big away games, has been, very underwhelming. But honestly, Haaland is still, he's the best FPL option in the game. We know this. And I would probably use the triple captain on him in 23. And Mahrez would be my preference right now. And it's what I said last week. I know they both got 1 pointers, so hasn't really changed too much of, my thinking. There are some more maybe doubts about Man City midfielders and assets in general now. Another kind of underwhelming performance against Spurs. You've got KDB not starting, Mahrez being subbed off so early, despite being the most dangerous attacker. There's a lot of things that don't seem right there at City. Then you add, everything going on in the background right now. It does seem very weird. The only reason I'm leaning towards Gabriel, Odegaard and Nketiah is because at the moment, especially due to blanks, there aren't many options in defence. That's a really good point, and it also could be team dependent. If you don't have too many defenders and you need someone in that position, then definitely go for Gabriel, Odegaard and Nketiah. And I would argue, having one defensive option is the best long-term beyond Gameweek 25 as well. So really good point there, Yusuf. Got luck with Mbeumo and Ben Meikle. Fair play. Another 12-pointer by Mbeumo. If I had to pick between one of those two, it would have been Ben Mee. Mbeumo can be very streaky, or he does really well in one game, then blanks for 4 or 5 games afterwards. So that's why I'm not a big fan of him in FPL, but he can deliver. Short to Thiago Silva, Reece James? No. I honestly would rather keep Shaw and bench him. And I will talk about Reece James. I think he's a skip. I'm not surprised at all that he came off before 60 minutes in Gameweek 22. And look, Chelsea have been very solid defensively, so it's not a bad call to go for Thiago Silva, Reece James. Badiashile is another one as well, but I'd actually rather keep Shaw if you can. If you're really settled on getting rid of a Man United asset, then yes, defensively I would consider a Spurs defender or even Chelsea. But Reece James right now is a skip for me. Yeah, Zayd, we covered that already. Like I said, I'd keep Martinelli, but you could possibly make a free transfer to an Odegaard or Saka or Mahrez, but that's pretty much all I would consider at the moment. Mitoma to Grealish and Martinelli to Saka for -4 worth it. I wouldn't do that. I'd actually rather keep Mitoma and don't go for Grealish. I think Grealish has been pretty decent with his overall performances, but I don't really trust him in FPL. Martinelli to Saka, I like it, but I wouldn't do it for a hit, if possible. Sell Tony for Nketiah. Yes, but beyond Game Week 25, I would look to bring Tony back in, especially when Jesus is back in the squad. Yeah, I think so. It's difficult to judge with Chelsea. You know, they're looking really solid defensively. If I were to go for any assets, it would be Kepa in goal and a defender. But yeah, Felix was their most promising attack along with Mudryk, who of course I think came off with an injury. So yeah, I think Felix will be an option now that he's back from suspension. Should I sell Ben Mee for Ake? I think I would. A double for Ake, and he also has the fixture against Bournemouth away in 25. I think it's a worthwhile transfer. You can always bring Ben Mee back in 26 or later on. Welcome, Barry. I have Saka, Odegaard, and Martinelli. Keep or sell one. The only one I'd sell from those three would be Martinelli, even though, like I said earlier, I have a feeling they will score against Brentford. It's just a gut feeling. It means nothing. But yeah, from those three, Saka and Odegaard are the best options in the long term for sure. Is it worth wildcarding in 25, mate? Thank you, James. I think it can be worth it, but for the majority of people and teams that I've seen, I would use it a few weeks later. So between 28 and 33, because you've got major blank game weeks in 28 and 32 to think about, 3 major double game weeks to end the season in 29, 34, and 37, along with a few smaller double game weeks in between that period. So I'd rather use the wildcard maybe around game week 27 or 28, but it might be better in your situation to use it a bit earlier. But I don't know your team, so it's hard for me to say. Who's the best Almiron replacement who doesn't blank in 25, excluding City and Arsenal players? Really good question, because you know most players I've mentioned, Mitoma, Rashford, Fernandes, all blank in 25. So if I had to really nail down on one player, and it's not Arsenal or City, it's really tough. I will admit it's really tough. That's a good one. That is a really good one. I was thinking about Mudryk before his injury, but not too sure about that one. Kulusevski's a decent option to consider. That is a really good question. I'm going to have to think about that one, honestly, because there's not too many options, if I'm being quite frank. So just going to have a quick look at the fixtures again in 25 and see. But you also want to think about 24 and also after 25. You don't just want to think about that in particular. But let me try and get you... That is a really good one. Not a big fan of the other options, to be quite frank. I really am not. I think maybe Jared Bowen could be decent, but I'm not really feeling it. Liverpool assets I wouldn't go near right now. What maybe could sway towards a Salah or someone like that is the fact that they could have a double in 26 or 27, but honestly, I'd probably just take a punt on someone like Mudryk or something, or Maddison. I think Maddison, despite facing Arsenal, he's my favourite FPL asset that doesn't play for Arsenal, Man City, and that also doesn't blank in 25. So, yeah, probably James Maddison would be up there. That would be my answer. Not ideal, but there you go. Hi, Dylan. Tony and Almiron. Let me just try to get this up again. And yeah, I am quite far behind. Jesus. Oh my God. I'm like 30, 40 questions behind. I'm going to try to speed through this as well. So to Nketiah Mahrez for a -4. Yes, I would do that. I think that's a worthwhile set of transfers. And you can always bring Tony back in after 25. Thinking of captaining Odegaard or Saka, City look poor. That's not a bad idea, and I am open to that. But Arsenal also look very lackluster against Everton. I don't think City were particularly great against Spurs, but you know, it's more, how do I put this, maybe more acceptable or reasonable to play poorly against Spurs than it is against Everton, even though Everton obviously had a managerial bounce and other factors like that. But yeah, that's not a bad shout. Captain KDB or Odegaard or Saka or Haaland? Probably just Rashford or Bruno Fernandes to jinx them, which you've already done actually, Jamie. Triple captain on Rashford, so fair play. Hi, Dylan. I took a -4 to bring Rashford and Badiashile. Nice, nice. And Badiashile's returning every single star he's had so far. I like that, to be fair. The fixture in 25 isn't great for them against Spurs, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 0-0 in that game. Rashford looks good as well, but Yeah, if you did that hit this week, I'm guessing you did, then that's a really good hit. It definitely, it's paid off already. I had Ben Mee on the bench, and when KDB didn't start, I was praying he wouldn't play. The thing is, though, I knew he'd come on, especially if they were trailing. So yeah, I would have just assumed the worst when I saw he was on the bench and not got my hopes up. My plan is Andreas to Mahrez, a triple City attack. Just got priced out from doing Martinelli to -4, but might not have been worth it anyways. I don't think so. I'd rather keep Martinelli than Andreas. Mahrez doesn't blank in 25 anyway, so you're not really, downgrading yourself in future weeks in terms of the blank. So that looks pretty decent. I'm not a big fan of triple up in Man City offensively right now, and I'd rather diversify your attack, but it's not bad, and it could be a major differential in 23. Stones for Ake for a -4 for 23, or just pass on a City defender. I probably would pass. I wouldn't take a hit for a City defender, I think, ideally. I might change my mind later in the week, and if I were to bring in a defender this week, it would be Ake or a City defender, but doesn't really scream to me like a mega haul. Maybe a clean sheet against Villa. But City defenders in general don't get that many bonus points, not that many attacking returns. So I'm not really that fussed about City defenders right now. Martinelli to Saka, yep, fair enough, Amir. Kane to Nketiah, no. Honestly, no. I think someone even asked me last week, heading into the City game, should I get rid of Kane to Nketiah for a hit? And I said no. Yes, Nketiah plays Everton, but I even said in that last stream, I wouldn't be surprised if Kane outscored Nketiah in Gameweek 22 despite the fixture, and it happened. Honestly, I'd probably just I'd keep Kane and maybe get Nketiah for someone else, if anything. Who to replace Andreas? Maximin on Manchester and Arsenal, 7.7 million in the back. Oh, you're maxed out on Man United Arsenal, that's fair enough. I'd go from Riyad Mahrez. Yeah, I think that's the one to go for. Yeah. Tony to Havertz? No, I would not go for Havertz. And also, once Felix comes back into the team, Havertz might not even start. I wouldn't do that. Teams we might be overlooking due to the double game week? That's a good question. Probably, I'd say Brentford is one, and I've maybe overlooked them a little bit as well, underestimated them. So assets like Ben Mee, Tony still. I'd say Brighton with Matoma. I didn't go for Matoma simply because of the blank and also wanted to get double gimmick players like Odegaard, Mahrez. It's backfired so far, so yeah, I'd say Brighton and Brentford are up there. Havertz or Mitrovic? Mitrovic for me still. Nketiah or Wilson? Nketiah. Best Darwin long-term replacement? It would be Tony. Just bear in mind they blanks in 25 whilst the others don't. Should the FFP breaches change our thinking about City assets and double gimmick and beyond? Not really. If there were to be repercussions, it won't be immediate, and I don't think it would impact the selections or whatever in Gameweek 23. All it does is add more background stuff, background noise for Man City, who've already had a bad season or maybe not to the usual standards, and they just lost a crucial game against Spurs. They could have clawed the gap to Arsenal. I don't think so. Not right now. Should I start Andreas or Shaw? Luke Shaw. Kane to Nketiah? No, I wouldn't do that. I slept through the deadline and forgot to transfer KDB to Bruno. Oof, and triple captain Rashford and burn a transfer. Yeah, but at least you had a good game week. Yeah, I've got to look at the positives, and it might end up somehow paying off in Game Week 23 with KDB. Is Matoma the best player in the league? No. Is he one of the most in form? Yes, but for me, the best overall player for me still is Kevin De Bruyne. The best player right now or this season, Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, Odegaard, those sorts of players. But overall, no, he's not the best. Who do you bench between White, Shaw, or Botman? Probably Shaw. That's what I'm looking to do right now. Would you keep Tony or go for another player? I think I'm keeping him. If anything, I'd maybe downgrade him and go for a 5-man midfield, but I don't think it really makes sense in my situation. I'm keeping Tony, I think, for the time being. Hi, Dylan. Which teams have the best fixtures, including blanks till Game Week 28? I can just show you instead of giving you my opinion. So, according to Fantasy Football Hub, if we check here, the fixture ticker, until Game Week 28, which was what you asked for, Arsenal, Man City, Spurs, Chelsea and Liverpool are in the top 5. And obviously Arsenal and City are top because of the double game week in 23. If you want to see the worst teams, those include Man United, Newcastle, and the blank obviously plays a big part in that. Otherwise, they'd probably be mid-table. But yeah, the best teams for you there, Arsenal, Man City, Spurs, Chelsea and Liverpool. You've even got a few other teams like Wolves in there that you might be interested in, although I probably wouldn't be. But yeah, those are the top 5 teams in terms of fixture ticker. And also for those of you that haven't used the triple captaincy, this could help you as well. Haaland is projected to score 13.1 points in the double game week against Aston Villa and Arsenal, followed by Nketiah, and then you've got like 3 players on 10 with De Bruyne, Mahrez and Odegaard all on the same figure. closely followed by Saka, and then Salah, who is still really highly rated against a possible resurgent Everton. And then you've got Martinelli, Ramsdale, and Jack Grealish. But yeah, the main assets there for you: Haaland, Nketiah, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Odegaard, and Bukayo Saka. Martinelli to Odegaard and Almiron to Mahrez, 2 free transfers. I think I would do that. Yeah, that looks very sensible, yeah. I know Casemiro is suspended, but is he a good option after the 3 games? The way I look at Casemiro in FPL, he's not a bad option. I don't think I could see him scoring from time to time, but the underlying numbers don't really suggest anything sustainable or him, being better value for money than Odegaard, Saka, or any of these other options. So basically, is he a bad option? No. But is he a better option than a lot of players you can get between 6 and 8 million? No. So I just wouldn't go for him. And from United, you've got You've got Bruno Fernandes, Rashford. I'd even rather go for the likes of Shaw, Lisandro Martinez, and De Gea. So he's not bad, but also not great. Surely Fernandes is a keep with penalty kick duties long term. Well, the thing is, though, you've got double game week players in 23, Man City and Arsenal players, and also no blank in 25. So with Fernandes, you can sell him now or in 25, but then bring him back in 26. It's not a big deal. But, of course, since the World Cup, since Ronaldo's departure, whatever you want to point towards, Fernandes has suddenly become a very good FPL option once again. Goalkeeper transfer to be considered before game week 25 if we have Pope, Ward, or just play Ward. I think I'd just play Ward, Elias. I think you could do better elsewhere. Welcome, Eddie, and let's change the screen as well, by the way. Let me just show you the price changes. Rashford is expected to go up today. If not, it'll probably be later in the week, which is probably more likely. You've got a few players like Trossard and anyone else of interest, Dallo, who are about to go down as well. But yeah, one other thing I wanted to show you before we go back to your questions and answer what Eddie has on screen is the top 10k captains for Game Week 22. An overwhelming amount for Rashford, 85%. Erling Haaland was captained by more players than Fernandes, which I do find a bit strange. And in the end, those that went for Fernandes and Rashford, fair play. Even Luke Shaw, I could see maybe a haul in the second game there, and a bit unlucky not to get that clean sheet. And I think if Casemiro didn't get that red card, I honestly think United would have gone on to win 2, maybe even 3-0. But there you go. That is what you need to know here. And let's just go back into my team. I'm probably going to show you, my future plans and stuff in my team selection video and other videos, and I'll save it for them. So Eddie says, hi Dylan, who to get for Martinelli for 6.9 million, got 3 City players? It would be Odegaard, Eddie. But you don't need to sell Martinelli for me, especially for a hit. I think that would even put me off Odegaard. But yeah, I think Odegaard's the simple answer. Also, triple captain Haaland. I probably would do it. The things that would put me off is obviously the environment around City, them also looking a bit inconsistent. I don't think they've won 4 Premier League games in a row this season. They always win maybe 2 or 3, then draw or lose. They haven't really built a run so far, and they could even find themselves 8 points behind Arsenal should Arsenal win their game in hand, of course. And also, if Arsenal end up beating Man City, the gap could be even bigger. So, yeah, I can understand the concerns about Erling Haaland and also Man City players, but I think I still would triple captain him. I think that Villa fixture's enough. They're a very poor side defensively, in my opinion, and I could see City scoring 2 or 3. Would you consider Bailey to Grealish for a -4? No, I don't think I'd go for Grealish for a -4. Mahrez and Haaland are my other 2 City assets. Honestly, I'd pass or go to an Arsenal midfielder instead. I wouldn't do that. Start Lewis or Trippier? I'd probably start Trippier instead. I'm not sure if Lewis starts both games, and even if he does, I think Trippier could just do more in one game, so I'd go for Trippier. Best replacement for Almiron, and should I keep or sell Martinelli? I'd keep Martinelli. And best replacement for Almiron, Odegaard, I'd guess. I'm not sure what your budget is there. Haaland, you apparently made the wrong choice joining City. What a comment by Larica. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. Comments like that are very reactionary. He literally scored a hat-trick just a few games ago, and Man City is the best team for him in terms of chance creation. Even if Haaland was at Arsenal, he would not get the amount of service and chances and goals in Arsenal. So I think he made the right choice going to Man City, but it might be a bit of a transitional period for them in general, and maybe in years to come they'll be even better. But look, Man City have been excellent. Even this season, they've obviously slipped up in a few games. Yeah, I think that's just a reactionary comment. Best game week to play wildcard? I can't give you a specific game week, and I don't know your team, but I would say between game week 28 and 33 is the best time to use it, and I'm mainly looking between 28 and 31, perhaps. Remember, you got 2 major blanks in 28 and 32, and 3 major double game weeks in 29, 34, and 37. 72 points without Fernandes and rolled transfer. Can't complain. Good stuff, and that's why as much as Bruno Fernandes is one of the best options in 22, I even said it last week, he's not completely essential. You can still do well without him, and it's good to see that. Should I take a -8 to do Martinelli to Odegaard, Fernandes to KDB, and Walker to Ake, or just take a -4 and keep Walker? I just do a -4, and even then, I think Martinelli could do pretty well in Game Week 23, but I think the -4 is the best option for you there. Draft Felix or Mudryk? My preference would probably be Mudryk, but it's really difficult to say there. And either way, would I rather go for Mudryk over a City or Arsenal midfielder right now? No, I prefer Mitoma as well, let alone Rashford and Fernandes. So it becomes a bit tricky to fit one of these Chelsea attackers in. They're not scoring goals, they're defending really well, keeping clean sheets, but it's not like they're creating a lot of chances. If you were to go for an attacker, you've mentioned the right two. And I think Mudryk would be my preference just because he's a midfielder, but not too sure about that. Yep, I think that could be pretty sensible there, Nihal. Also a Spurs defender. If Pedro Porro gets into the team, he would be my favourite Spurs defender. So that looks pretty good. I don't think there is, Saga. The same goes for Euro Fantasy Football and World Cup Fantasy. I don't think there is a way to check your season ranks in the past. Kaftan says, why didn't they go up in price? Yeah, that is true. I think I remember touching it on the stream. I'm not sure why it hasn't gone up then. But either way, Rashford should go up very soon. But that is very surprising then. And that probably points towards manipulation in terms of the market by FPL headquarters. Start Mitrovic over Rashford. I actually disagree. Forest have been pretty decent since the World Cup. I think they're building a nice run. They're even in a pretty good position right now. And Rashford, I couldn't bench him against Leeds, honestly. The form Rashford's in, I wouldn't bench him. Look, it's not a bad, replacement you've got in there. If you are confident of a Mitrovic return, then I would start him, but not over Rashford, in my opinion. I would start Shaw, like I said. I think someone asked about Lewis versus Trippier. This is a bit closer, but I think I'd still go for Luke Shaw, potentially. Mahrez or De Bruyne, a better pick for Game Week 23. I would argue Mahrez. It's close, but I'd go for Riyad Mahrez. I know they haven't been great, but the logical moves are bringing in Chelsea and Liverpool players from 25 as they don't blank in 25 and 28. But this is the thing, though. With Chelsea, that's fair enough. Kepa in goal, a defender, like Badiashile, even Cucurella could finally be decent. But the attackers aren't really that good, if we're being honest. Not right now. If I were to maybe take a punt, it'd be Mudryk or Felix. From Liverpool, they're that bad right now. They've literally got the least points of any Premier League club in 2023. And, defensively, they're awful. Going forwards, they're pretty lackluster as well. So honestly, yes, it makes sense if they got doubles, they don't blank in these specific game weeks. But at the same time, I'm not going to go out of my way to get these assets in. Only Chelsea defenders, really, because they're looking really solid defensively at the moment. Bench 1, Mitoma, Mitrovic, Rashford. Wow. With Mitoma's form, it's difficult for me to even bench him, but he might be the one. That's a close call. I wouldn't bench Rashford. He's definitely starting for me. You know what? I think I'd bench Mitrovic from those three. Yeah, and I'd start Mitoma and Rashford. Best Cancelo replacement. So I would probably go for an Arsenal City defender this week. I think Zinchenko's probably the best bet. But apart from those two, the kind of obvious ones with a double game week, I'd probably look at a Chelsea or Spurs defender. That's what I would look at. How much would you require to blind pick captain for Game Week 23? Not sure what you mean there, to be honest, but I am probably going to captain Haaland. I am considering possibilities like Odegaard or Riyad Mahrez if I do bring him in, but I think I will go for Haaland. I'm very confident of a return against Villa, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did well against Arsenal too. I have triple Liverpool and only Haaland since Game Week 1. I do not have any Arsenal assets. Do you think I should go wildcard? I'm around 90k. It's a good rank. You're doing well. It depends, though, because if that's your only real problems, but you have, a really solid base, you're well set up for Game Week 25, and also for Game Week 23, then I don't think you need to. I'm guessing you'd maybe need to take a hit to get 2 or 3 Arsenal players. I'm not sure if that's enough for a wildcard, though, because you might be, with a wildcard, sorting problems out for the immediate short term, but you're also leaving yourself short for the blanks and doubles in the future. and your other chips may also suffer as a result. I'd probably still hold out. If anything, Kath, what I would do is maybe take a hit and go for 2 Arsenal players and trim down your Liverpool assets. That's what I would do, I think. Tony to Mitrovic needs to get less blanking players. Keep up the great work. Thank you. I think this is a good time to sell Tony. If there was ever a time to sell him, it would be Game Week 23, facing Arsenal away, and also blanking in 25, and you can always bring him back in afterwards. Mitro has some good fixtures coming up. So yeah, I think it's a good time to make that transfer. But at the same time, if you don't have Nketiah and you have no triple Arsenal, that's where I'd rather go right now. Welcome, Sebastian. What do you think about Rodrigo to Mahrez and Castagna to Ake or Rico Lewis? I prefer Ake. He's more nailed on. He can play left back and centre back. And I know Rico Lewis obviously played left back the other day. But yeah, I think Ake would be my preference. I think he's more nailed on. I think he could also get more bonus points. It's not like Lewis has got any attacking returns so far as well. So yeah, I'd rather go to him. And Rodrigo Tamares looks really solid and sensible. You think Walker will start the double game week? I think he'll start one game, and actually, I think he'll be benched against Villa and start against Arsenal. So that could be a 2-pointer, could be a 1-pointer, who knows? But I don't think he starts both, but I do think he'll start one there. You suggested to have someone from Spurs in defence, 25. Yeah, they are playing Chelsea, but as I said earlier, Chelsea aren't great offensively, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a 0-0 draw in that game, to be honest. So yeah. When I'm talking about Spurs assets, it's about the long term. They've got great long-term fixtures. They don't blank in 25. So even if they blank in that game week, they still fit the bill and tick the boxes in other areas too. For my third Man City player, do I go over defender or mid? Probably a mid. I'd rather go for Mahrez than I would for Ake, as an example. 90 with Fernandes, Shaw and Rashford triple captain to go. Looks good. I have KDB and Haaland. Should I go for Mahrez? I probably would, but I also wouldn't go out of my way to get in a Riyad Mahrez or any Man City player at the moment. Wish I'd clicked triple captain but ran out of time. Are you confident with Haaland next week? I'm confident of Haaland hauling against Aston Villa. What I'm not confident about is everything going around at City, on and off the pitch, of course. But like I said to someone else earlier, would that impact maybe my transfer plans, or would it really put me off Man City in general just because they've got FFP, breaches and stuff going on? No. It's just another thing that adds on to maybe the uncertainty around them, the rotation. My biggest concern is the Champions League, how that impacts the Premier League team selection for Pep Guardiola. Yeah, look, if I start the triple captain, I probably would use on Haaland still in 23. I'm glad I did it already. I think Rashford could do just about enough to outscore Haaland next week, but obviously for those that haven't done it already, it's gone. You have to look forward, and I probably would look at Erling Haaland in 23. Thinking of De Gea, Alpha, Edison now, but can't decide if it's worth it or not. For free, it's a possibility. He also has a good fixture in 25 and great long-term fixtures, but I actually talk about Edison in the transfer tips video, and spoiler alert, I'm not really recommending him in that video. Very low ceiling, City aren't keeping too many clean sheets anyway. So no, I could see a clean sheet against Villa and possibly Bournemouth over the next 3 game weeks, so that is enough really for you, but I'm not so sure. I think the best goalkeepers in the game right now are Kepa and Pope, and also probably Raya. I think all of those 3 are better. Surely getting Liverpool assets could be ahead of the curve to gain ranks now. Class is permanent, but it's a tricky one. Just the way Liverpool are playing right now, I just don't really see them overcoming the situation anytime soon. They've neglected the midfield for far too long. And, you know, they just don't have the quality in certain areas. They've obviously got some key players injured too, which doesn't help. But honestly, with Liverpool assets, I just don't really see the comeback. You know, yes, they can get a win or 2 over the next 3, but that doesn't mean long-term they're going to be the difference maker for you in your FPL team and that they're going to, you know, start climbing the table. So yes, class is permanent in most cases, but I'm just not so sure about Liverpool assets. I definitely wouldn't have a double or triple up. 1 at the maximum right now. Once we have confirmed doubles, that's when I would maybe add another one. But honestly, I'd be happy to go without any of those, even if they have a double in 26 or 27. John Darren says, upgrade Groomer to Mitrovic. I'll be honest, yes, Mitro looks good for the next 3, but then he has some pretty poor fixtures afterwards, and he hasn't been very good for maybe 4 or 5 game weeks now. So yes, he's still probably the 4th or best or 5th best forward in the game. And if that helps you to fill the 11 and 25, fair enough, go for it. But yeah, I'd probably do it and then move Mitrovic on to Tony in 26 or something like that. I have Haaland and De Bruyne plus 3 Arsenal. Sell Fernandes to Mahrez or roll. That's a good question. I think Mahrez is a really good option at the moment, and I think I would do the transfer, but it's not necessary. It's not completely, I don't think Mahrez is essential in 23. I would actually argue that Fernandes was a far better option in 22 than Mahrez is in 23. Yes, I think Martinelli is at rotation risk, got subbed off very early against Everton. And Trossard, not that great in the last game, but in the 2 cameos before that against United and City, very, very promising signs. Yeah, I think Trossard will take some minutes off him. KDB versus Mahrez. We'll discuss this more so later in the week as well, but Mahrez is my preference at the moment, for sure. And it has been for a week or two as well. Tony to Kane for a -4 or bench Tony for sure and make the move in game at 24 or 25. I'd actually take the hit. The reason why is because Kane faces Leicester, his favourite opponent in the Premier League. I could see a mega haul there for Harry Kane. So, yeah, I think it's worth it even this week. And obviously doesn't blank in 25. Great long-term fixtures. He's, in my opinion, from this point onwards, he's the second best option in the game behind Haaland. So, yeah, I'd go for it. Bench Salah, Mitro, or Mahrez? I'd definitely start Mahrez. He's got a double game week. I wouldn't bench him. Trying to think of my gut feeling because Salah and Liverpool have been poor. Mitro has been a bit off it recently, but has been the better FPL option recently. I think I would bench Mitrovic. Should I play Trent or Shaw? I'd play Shaw. Nketiah or Saka of Gabriel and Odegaard? I would go for Saka if you can. Thank you very much, Mustafa. I appreciate it as well. Thank you very much for your kind words. Let's see how we... Oh, yeah, I'm a bit far behind still. Non-turn Rashford brace against on Wednesday. Oh, yes, Wednesday they play. I think I said Thursday earlier, so apologies for that. I wouldn't mind that, to be fair. 3 goals from my triple captain would be unheard of. Like I said, I have a very poor track record with that. Nonto as well, I would like that. Maybe Leeds getting a few points off them. But yeah, I think Pep has got the Cancelo thing wrong, and he is chopping and changing too much. The thing is with Cancelo, though, he did seem to have issues in the World Cup as well. He got benched, and also... I think things went on behind the scenes, and Pep's approach really is if a player doesn't want to be here, you're free to go. And, everyone's basically disposable. I do think getting rid of Cancelo and not replacing him does weaken Man City. And as we discussed in the last stream, last season Man City had Zinchenko and Cancelo, 2 inverted fullbacks. Now they have 0, unless you can count Rico Lewis, maybe gradually evolving in that role. But I do think Man City are basically getting worse and worse with some of these dealings like that. What do you think about my UCL fantasy team? I'll briefly read it because obviously this is a FPL stream, but it's looking very solid. I've actually got a very similar team myself. With Mbappe out, I think Messi's the ideal replacement. Really good midfield too. I am reconsidering KDB in my own team though, so maybe Mahrez could come in or someone else, but overall really solid stuff. Reece James, I'm not so sure about. I would maybe go for a more nailed on and less injury prone player. But honestly, really solid draft and it's looking very good. Yeah. I don't really have too much to really pick out holes with. Benfica defender, I probably would go for... Wait, so you got Grimaldo, James. Yeah, you've got Grimaldo already. I'm not sure if I'd go for Silva. He's a really good for ball recoveries, but I think Benfica have a lot of injuries at the back, and I'll do more research, of course, in the next week or so. And I'm planning to do a team selection video this week, the deadline stream next Tuesday as well. Double up on Newcastle defence and play Botman or Thiago Silva. I would play Botman this week, yeah. Hello, Dylan. Should I go for Mahrez and Saka, Fernandes and Rodrigo out, or B, Mahrez and Ake, Rodrigo and Stones out? I don't have Saka or Nketiah. Good question. I'd go for the first option, Mahrez and Saka, even though I would also like to keep Fernandes for the next 2 too. Thank you, Soldier Boy. Good to see you here once again. And thank you, Stian, as well. Yeah, I think keeping De Gea is the best thing. And you can always bring Edison in 25. What are your plans for Game Week 25? How many blank Game Week players will you have? I think 10. We discussed this in the last few videos, like team selections and streams and stuff. But basically, without making transfers, I'll briefly show you because I also want to talk about this in the team selection. But if we look here, 23, I am looking at something like Mahrez for Fernandes. Then in 24, rolling. Then in Game Week 25, potentially having 2 free transfers. And I could do something like this. Luke Shaw out for, let's say, Nathan Ake by them. And I could also bring in, let's see, so Game Week 25, I'd bench these Man United players as well. Who else is blanking? Yeah, Newcastle as well. So Andreas Pereira comes in. I basically have 10 players just by making 1 transfer. And I could even get an 11 out if I were to get rid of Tony or Botman. So maybe instead of Botman, I could go for another Chelsea defender, although I wouldn't trip up on Chelsea defensively against Tottenham. I think I'd maybe consider a Spurs defender. So Pedro Porro or Perisic or something like that. So that's something I'm yet to decide. And I also like some of these defenders long-term or options like Botman, Rashford and Tony. I want to keep them. It could be a case of selling for 1 week, then bringing back in 26. But basically, I'm not too poorly set up. I've got most of the key assets. I'd probably captain someone like Haaland in Game Week 25 as well. And yeah, it's looking pretty decent, actually, all things considered. All right, so let's go through some more questions. I want to do De Bruyne to Mahrez and Nunez to Kane for -4. Like I said with someone else earlier, if you can do Nunez to Kane for free, do that. And I would save De Bruyne to Mahrez. However, if you need that extra funds and you need to downgrade De Bruyne, fair enough, I'd go for it. Should I bench boost of Shaw, Botman and Andreas? It's a good bench, and I think you could get 15 points, which would be decent, but I don't think I'd bench boost. I think you'll get an even better bench in a few weeks' time. Which transfer do I plan to make? Only one, I think, and it'd be Mahrez in. Probably for Fernandes. I think that's probably the best thing for me. Going for 3-4-3, I have Kane and Haaland. What is the best third budget striker? Fixture proof, below 6.5 million. I mean, fixture proof, budget striker, you're asking for a bit too much there. The one I like a lot is Ferguson, but of course he's injured at the moment and he's not going to start every game. Even if he comes back from injury, you've got Welbeck starting games and Ferguson could get some 1 points for you, which is obviously very frustrating. Mbumo's nice in certain game weeks, but he's very inconsistent, so I wouldn't recommend him. Honestly, at 6.5 million and below, there's not really many I'd like. Maybe Ferguson would be my answer, but he's also going to frustrate you quite a lot too. Do you think I should roll the transfer or bring Mahrez instead of Andreas and bench Mitoma? With Mitoma's current form, I wouldn't want to bench him, to be fair. Yeah. I probably would make the move to Mahrez because he also has a great game in 25 and he's the most informed City player in general, you could argue. So, yeah, I think I would make the move and potentially bench Mitoma, which does sound crazy. Which two to start? I would start... That's a good question. Oh, yeah, Martinelli for sure with the double game week, and I would also start Botman, I think. What do you think about Ruben Neves? As an option, no. No. Most of his returns come from penalties and long shots. I know he scored a goal inside the box against Liverpool. It's not going to happen too often, trust me. And yeah, Wolves scored 3 goals against Liverpool, but normally they're a very low-scoring team. And I know they're improving with Lopetegui, but I wouldn't bring in Neves. Sell Fernandes and Mitrovic to get Kane and Mahrez in. Yeah, I think that looks sensible. Looks really good. Kane is the best option in the game besides Haaland. Soldier Boy, I'm guessing you used it in Game Week 20, was it? I don't know, I had a feeling, and that was literally just around the time that City were dropping points and looking a bit shaky. That was enough to put me off, and I also saw the possibility of United facing Leeds in a double game week, and yeah, that's why I just kind of held off a little bit, but I don't really blame people who did that. It was a decent decision, it was sensible. I'm happy I didn't do it in the end, but sometimes luck is involved in these decisions. Kepa, Edison, Pope. Honestly, I think Edison's still the worst of the three, even if he doubles now and has a good fixture in 25. I would argue Kepa's the best of the lot right now. He's the cheapest. Whenever Chelsea keep a clean sheet, he's very likely to get bonus points. He makes a lot of saves. So I'd go Kepa first, Pope second, Edison third. Welcome, St. Ledger. No worries. Currently on White, Odegaard and Martinelli. Worth a -4 to change to Gabriel Saka? I think it is worth it. My problem is I could see not too much disparity in points between all these Arsenal assets. And I actually said I think Martinelli will score in the double game week, in particular in that game against Brentford. So would I be open to Martinelli to Saka and Odegaard for a hit? I would be. And obviously for free, I think that's a really good move. But for a hit, that might just be enough to put me off. I think you've got a solid triple up anyway. I've got the exact same. And honestly, if I had to say take a -4 or just keep it, I'd probably keep, to be honest. Beans or peas for my steak? Probably peas, I guess. Best budget striker, Nonto or Johnson or anyone below? Actually, that's a really good point. Johnson. And I actually mentioned him last week. Yeah, he is my favourite one. Definitely. Is he fixture proof? Not really. Is he gonna return every week? No. But Forest are rejuvenated. Johnson scored a quality goal obviously over the weekend. I think he's got returns in his last 4 games now. and he's showing some real consistency. Yeah, I think Johnson would be my answer. Him, then Ferguson, I think. Play Botman, Shaw, or White? Botman. Well, no, White has the double game week. It'd be White. I know he faces City in one of them, but yeah, probably White first, Botman second, Shaw third. Bench 2, Matoma, Shaw, or Bruno? Oh, I'd start Bruno. He has a great record against Leeds. He's in good form. I think United are more likely to score 2 or 3 than they are to maybe concede, basically. So, yeah, I'd start Bruno and bench the other 2. Let's see what else we have. Welcome, Tech. I'm doing well. What about you? Why Cucurella? I'm not bringing him in, mate. I already have him, and he's basically been a transfer out waiting to happen. But yeah, you know, if he's going to continue to start, and I know Chilwell's knocking on the door, then I'm happy to keep him for now. And I think Chilwell, I might be a bit lucky in this case that, you know, he's going to be eased back into the team, and it might take some time, and basically I can get some of Cucurella's returns finally. The last 2 times Cucurella's kept a clean sheet, he's been on my bench, which is a bit of a shame. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happened yet again in Game Week 23. But yeah, he's not a transfer in for me. Don't worry. What do you think of Grealish? I think he's a good player. I think maybe he's a bit overhated in general. I think he makes City play better. But obviously, I think the 100 million price tag obviously plays a lot. In FPL, not really someone that convinces me in terms of goals and assists. I don't think he gets enough. Riyad Mahrez and De Bruyne are the midfielders to go to in that case. You've got Erling Haaland up front, and even possibly a defender or goalkeeper to maybe cover them defensively. But yeah, really, when you have midfielders like De Bruyne and Mahrez, it's tough to go for Grealish instead. Look, personally, if you can, I would keep Tony, bench him in 23 maybe, or 25, and just keep him for the long term. I'd rather have Tony until gimmick 30 than Mitrovic. Thank you, Jan. Pope or Edison? Pope. I know he blanks in 25, but he's the better goalkeeper and he'll score more points. It's as simple as that. What are the triple captaincy options for the rest of the season? I can't tell you for sure because we don't have confirmed doubles later, but there's still a chance of Man City, United or Arsenal having doubles later. It could be in a small or big double game week, for example, but we don't know exactly which fixtures would, you know, fall under that. I think Arsenal might have the best double later in the season, but it's not even a guarantee there. So yeah, right now I can't tell you for sure, but there will be other triple captaincy opportunities for sure if you really want to go for a double game week. Yeah, that is true. You've got Cancelo loaned out to Bayern. You've got Trent, you know, playing in a dysfunctional Liverpool team that go from, 2 games away from a quadruple to suddenly 10th in the league. You've got Reece James as well, constantly giving you 1-pointers or injuries, and Mohamed Salah only with 7 goals and being very underwhelming. Yeah, things change really quickly in football. Thank you, Twisted Parky. Always appreciated. Joao Felix or Ollie Watkins in Game Week 25? That is a good point. That's a good question. I'd say Ollie Watkins. I think he's been pretty good under Unai Emery, and I think I said that about Danny Ings, then he was obviously sold. But yeah, Ollie Watkins would be my preference. I have to say, Felix was really impressive before he got sent off, so this could obviously change. The way I see it, I think Villa are better than Chelsea offensively. So if I were to go for Chelsea assists, it would be the defenders more so than not, and the attackers, I think it's a wait and see for now. So if you're asking me at this moment in time, it'd be Watkins. I'm not a big fan of him in FPL. He's a big FPL troll in my opinion, but yeah, he would be my answer. Should I bench boost with Ward, Mitrovic, Botman and Bueno? It's a solid bench. Would I bench boost with it? I don't think so. But it's a really good bench and you can easily get 15 points. So you can just get out of the way. But at the same time, I could also see your bench being even better in a few weeks' time as well. I don't think there's a right or wrong there. It's just back your gut. Are you really confident of returns from your bench players? And you've got a solid 11 as well. If so, then why not? What do you think about Mudryk? Obviously, he came off at half-time, which is off-putting. My main concern with going for Chelsea assets right now is that they don't score enough goals or create enough chances. I think they're kind of building from the back right now and working from those foundations first. In terms of Mudryk, he is the most exciting player they have offensively alongside Felix, and they're the only 2 attackers I would consider. But honestly, there's so many midfielders right now in the game that he's not really in my thoughts at the moment. Mahrez or triple up on Arsenal mids? Mahrez would be my preference. Going 5-man midfield next round. Yep, Salah and Andreas Alpha, Saka, Odegaard, and Mahrez is the plan. Looks really solid. I have no objections to that whatsoever. And I do agree with, going for Mahrez on top of that Arsenal midfielder too. Thank you, Dolls. Thank you very much. Darmian playing the full 90 and Dumfries not even being subbed on in Milan derby yesterday. Yeah, 1-0 win against AC Milan. Lautaro Martinez again in form, 7 goals in 9 games. But yeah, it's kind of a strange situation with the defenders. I'm not so sure if they keep a clean sheet against Porto anyway, but that's obviously something to keep an eye on. And I think the defense is probably the area most subject to change in my draft, which I uploaded a few days ago. So I am looking at into defenders, and thank you for the update once again. I will be doing even more research into them because it's a bit of a delicate situation right now. Bruno Tamares and Martinelli to Odegaard for free, or keep Martinelli? For free, I would do it. I think I would go to Odegaard. I think the main reason for that is minutes. I think Odegaard just has those minutes over him. He's better for bonus points, and as a result, I think he's just a safer pick. KDB or Ake? Because of the lack of defenders you will probably have in 25, I'd probably go for Ake. Which two should I start? Shaw, White, Mitoma, Botman? Mitoma and White, I would start, yeah. Hillman for sure long-term. Wolves fixture ticker looks good till the end. Yeah, potentially. I wouldn't get rid of Shaw just yet, though. If anything, get rid of him in Game Week 25. And you probably already have a lot of good defenders anyway. And you might not even start Shaw or Kilman in 23. Enzo worth a punt at 5 million over Almiron? No. I've seen Enzo a lot at Benfica, at Argentina. At River Plate, I've seen a bit as well, you know, before he was even linked to Europe and stuff. I don't think so. Especially if he does play in this role at Chelsea, and he also played this in the World Cup as the kind of lone defensive midfielder. Obviously, that will change once Chelsea gets some key players back, but I wouldn't go for him in FPL. Not right now, for sure. Champions League fantasy soon. Me addicted, need FPL help group. Yeah. It can be a bit draining, of course. It's important not to let you to be overwhelmed by all these fantasy games, but I think Champions League fantasy is a lot of fun. From those three, I'd bench Luke Shaw. Play Ben White this game week. I mean, yeah, I know he faces Brentford and City. It's not an easy double, but I would go for it. Would you start Mitoma or Kane? Harry Kane, but I wouldn't bench Mitoma either, to be honest. Bench 2 for Game Week 23, Wilson, Mitro, Botman, Mitoma. I would bench... Ooh, oh, yo, mamma mia. I think I would bench Wilson and Mitrovic. Bench Ake or Shaw? I'd bench Shaw. Is Mount the Chelsea asset to go to? No. Doesn't matter if he's on penalties. He might not even be that nailed on long term. The Chelsea assets to go to are the defenders, and actually, Kepa's the best option they have, and I've sent this for quite some time. I think he's the highest scoring goalkeeper since the World Cup with 44 points. So the way I'd rank Chelsea assets is Kepa first, a Chelsea defender like Badiashile in second place, and then if I wanted to maybe go for an attacker, it'd be Mudryk or Felix as the third option, but honestly, I don't think Mount is the go-to asset. Got March a couple of weeks back. Should I sell him for Mahrez this week or remove Bruno Andreas? I'd sell March, yep. I'd sell Solly March. I could see him returning in the next week or two, but ultimately blanks in 25. He's been missing some key chances. You're going to a double game week player. And, you know, if you sell Andres Pereira, you're getting rid of a blank game week 25 player. And Bruno Fernandes could do really well in game week 23. So ultimately, I'd sell Solly March. Mitro or Nketiah? I'd go for Nketiah. Yeah, potentially. I mean, we just don't know yet. There are a lot of different... punishments that could be issued to Man City, but nothing's confirmed yet. They will obviously have the opportunity to defend themselves, but apparently not through TAS, which is a bit strange. Should I sell Bruno for Mahrez for -4? For a -4, I'm not so sure about -4. Ultimately, I think I would because of the fixture in 25 and the double, but yeah, it's a close call. Thank you, Soldier Boy. Always a pleasure. And let's see what we're on currently, since I haven't actually checked all the while. I've been streaming for like an hour. And I haven't seen, we've got over 200 people watching, so that's good to see. Thank you very much to everyone. If you haven't already, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this stream to over 150 likes. That'd be massively appreciated. And we're also very close to 18,000 subscribers. I believe we are around 230 away or something like that. So anything like that is going to help this channel out massively. And check the links in the description below for the Patreon, the channel memberships. You can get access to all my team reveals and also all my videos early on. Early access to my videos is a key perk that you can have on offer as a captain, legend, or differential tier. So be sure to check that out. Thank you to everyone who's already signed up and everyone who sends super chats in all these streams. It's always massively appreciated. And also be sure to check out my other socials like my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. And you can also engage with me there on Discord and also in the comment section of YouTube videos and live streams. So I think I've shown this for quite some time. Let's go back to my initial starting 11 for Game Week 23 without transfers. You can see here Kepa Arrizabalaga will be in goal. I don't think that's going to change. Trippier, White, Shaw, Botman as the defensive four. And I've got a midfield four of Martinelli, Odegaard, Rashford and Fernandes. And the front two, the two best strikers in the game, Erling Haaland and Harry Kane. My captain will be Erling Haaland. I could see him doing really well against Villa, as I said before. Odegaard could be my vice. If I were to bring in Mars, which is my original plan, I would consider him for the captaincy or vice captaincy, but ultimately I don't think much will change from this. One transfer is what I'm looking to make. I'm not really buying this double game week as much as game week 22 with the Man United double. I think the fixtures for City and Arsenal aren't that great, obviously facing each other. I think Arsenal against Brentford could be relatively tough. I don't really see a huge ceiling for their assets. I've already got the triple up in Arsenal anyway, so if anything, maybe bring in a Man City midfielder like Mahrez or De Bruyne, and that's about it. Unfortunately, I can't do Andres Pereira to Riyad Mahrez, but at the same time, I also keep a blank Game Week 25 player by keeping him and possibly selling Fernandes instead, which is what is my original plan. Fernandes to Mahrez is looking very likely, but of course I will maybe reconsider after Wednesday's game between Man United and Leeds. So let's keep going through your questions and comments, and yeah, we've got some more streams planned out for the next week. We've got a deadline stream for UCL Fantasy next Tuesday. Of course, we've got an FPL deadline stream this Saturday, followed by the usual kind of reaction stream that we will do possibly on the Sunday or Monday as well. So plenty of streams coming within the next week, alongside the videos, which I've already kind of started recording and making notes on and researching and all of that good stuff. So let's keep on going through this. I'm kind of already a bit behind, so let's whiz through some of these. Ethan says, would you sell Bruno or KDB to Mahrez just to get Kane in for Tony for a -4? It would be Bruno. KDB has the double in 23 and also has a fixture in 25. I don't like getting rid of Bruno for a hit. Leeds is one of his favourite opponents after all, but I'd rather sell him than De Bruyne this week. That is true. I mean, the thing is, a -4 does seem a bit excessive in that situation, but honestly, Harry Kane alone can pay that off, let alone Riyad Mahrez. So yeah, I think I'd go for it. Odegaard in, Almiron out for a -4. Yeah, I think so. Almiron, great fixture, but I think Odegaard is worth that hit. What do you think is the ideal Game Week 28 team like? 3 Arsenal, 3 Newcastle, 2 3 Chelsea, 1 2 Villa, 1 2 Fulham, Leeds, Liverpool, depending on who doesn't blank. I think that is pretty much how I would look at it. And with Chelsea, like I said, it's Kepa and then a Chelsea defender, if anything. Maybe take a punt on a Mudryk or Felix. Villa, I think, is the kind of the same thing. Maybe a Watkins up front or something like that. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It could maybe be 2 or 3 Liverpool assets if they start showing improvements and get a double as well in 26 or 27. But I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Tech. Tarkowski an option? Not really. I know obviously he scored against Arsenal. He has obviously a nice relationship with Sean Dyche before, and I think he could really sort them out defensively. They were very, very well organised against Arsenal. So yeah, he could become an option, but I'm not so sure. I think there are other teams that I'd rather go on, and I think we'll keep more clean sheets and ultimately get more points. KDB or Odegaard, Saka only can do one. I'd rather go for Odegaard or Saka, and I'd probably go for Odegaard. Yeah, that would be my preference there. Do I do Martinelli to Odegaard and Bruno to KDB or Mahrez for a -4? And if so, which one? Bruno to Mahrez, I think, for a hit. Would you take a -12 just to bring in Kane? Or if so, who would you downgrade Kulo to? If not, who would you start, Mitoma or Kulusevski? I wouldn't take a -12, and I'd just start Mitoma, I think. How is a midfield of Rashford, Mitoma, Odegaard, Rashford, Saka? I'm guessing Fernandes is one of them. Really solid. I could see all of them hauling in Game Week 23. Start Bruno or Kane? That's a really tough question. You've got Harry Kane facing his favourite opponent in Leicester, Bruno Fernandes facing Leeds. I probably would favour Kane, but really close call. Kane or Bruno for the bench? Yeah, once again, I'd probably bench Bruno, but very reluctantly, I probably wouldn't do it. If I'm being honest, I would just start both. Ben White, Martinelli, Mitro to Lewis, Saka, and Nketiah. I'm not a big fan of Lewis in FPL. No attack and returns. The underlying numbers aren't that great. He's a quality player, of course, very young. He's only going to get better. But in FPL, not really interested. Saka and Nketiah looks really good, but I'd rather go for another City defender instead of Lewis. Almiron, Fernandes, Trippier out. Mahrez, De Bruyne, Gabriel in. Yeah, looks fine. Also consider Zinchenko. Lower ownership, maybe more bonus points potential and assist potential than Gabriel, but looks really solid. And also consider maybe an Arsenal midfield instead of De Bruyne if you don't have a triple up already. For a -8 or not, says Luke. No, I wouldn't do that for a -8. Definitely not. Chelsea defender like Badiashile or Reece James instead of Shaw in Game Week 25. I'd go for. I'm probably got the pronunciation wrong, by the way. I haven't heard his name being pronounced, but I'd go for Badiashile instead of Reece James. I think he's more nailed on, less injury prone, and also can get bonus points. So yeah. Does it make sense to sell Martinelli for either Saka or Odegaard? Yes. For free, definitely makes sense. For a hit, still makes sense, but I'd be a bit cautious about that. But yeah, it does. Best wildcard. I'll be making a video on that, so I'm not going to go into it right now, and there could be a few changes from the last few videos, so trimming down the United assets as an example, and even ignoring potentially great assets like Matoma, but yeah, I will be making a video fairly soon. Yeah, thank you, Soldier Boy. Worth doing a -12 from Trent, Salah, Darwin to Gabriel, Saka, and Nketiah? Honestly, I think so. It does seem excessive, but I think it makes sense. Gabriel and Nketiah. Long term, I'd say Gabriel. Best James Ward-Prowse replacement or hold? I mean, at 6.2 million, I mean, Matoma is my favourite option, but he obviously blanks in 25, so not so sure. Yep, I mentioned Zinchenko a few times in the last week or two. I'll be mentioning him in more detail in the transfer tips. Yeah, I do like him. My only concern is his injury record. Yeah, exactly. He loves playing against Leicester. He's in form. He's had a great season so far. He's going to also break the goal record from the Golden Boot winners in Heung-min Son and Salah from last year. And we're only, 20 games in or something. So yeah, I think that's a good shout. I'm worried about Mahrez getting another 1 pointer next week. He's not going to get a 1 point in a double game week, surely. Let me not tempt Pep. The alternate kits is a Chrome extension. I'll try to give you the link very quickly. Let me see. So if you click the link that I'm going to put in the live chat right now, just add it to your browser. If your browser is Google Chrome or Brave, you'll be able to add it. Yeah, they've got some great fixtures. We went over it earlier. They've got the second best according to Fantasy Football Hub, only behind Arsenal. And I would argue City's fixtures are better until Game Week 28. Hopefully Fernandes blanks next week after we all sell him. Yeah, it's going to be a tall order, though. He loves playing against Leeds, like I said. He's in form, and I could see him doing well in that fixture, too. I don't think they can double in 25. It would be in Game Week 26 or 27. So by Game Week 25, I think we could know, but don't quote me on that, because I could be wrong. Which would you captain? Probably Haaland, as you can see on my screen. I don't think I'd go away from him. I think that Villa fixture is enough for me to go for him instead. Rock, paper, scissors for pens would spice up the Prem and FPL like St. Johnston. Oh, no. I mean, I've seen stuff like that happen before, but not in the Premier League. Mahrez in for Fernandes or Mahrez in for Almiron? If you can, for Almiron. Just bear in mind, of course, in Game Week 25, well, they both blank, actually. So, yeah, definitely for Almiron. I'd keep Fernandes and, if possible, start him in 23 too. I don't think it'll be crazy because, yes, he faces Bournemouth, but you're also getting in someone who probably doubles now and has a fixture 25, and you can always bring Trippier back in. Ultimately, I would keep him there. Yeah, like I said, there will be a UCL Fantasy team selection video within the next week and also the deadline stream next Tuesday. There could maybe be one other video coming out between then, but because there is no Limitless or Wildcard available at the moment, because obviously we have unlimited transfers, I won't be making those videos right now. Martial replacements, Nketiah I think is a really solid and easy move there as well. Mahrez is my preference at the moment. What defense do you think has the highest chance of a clean sheet this match day for UCL Fantasy? Benfica, says Tech. I need to quickly refresh my memory on the fixtures, so bear with me for a second. But yeah, let's go through this quite quickly. I think it's quite tough because a lot of the best defenses have very tough fixtures, like Man City facing Leipzig away. So when I look at it, I think the most likely to give a clean sheet would probably be Napoli, Inter Milan, and Benfica. Yeah, I think those are the three most likely. Yeah, that's a good point. I think those three in the first leg of the round of 16. So yeah, just to recap, Napoli, Inter Milan, and I would say Benfica. They're not in that order specifically, but something like that. Do you plan on getting any other City players? Yeah, Mahrez. Possibly in for Fernandes, but I'm also open to keeping Fernandes and maybe not going for Mahrez for now anyway. I only have Haaland for the double. Who would you bring in? Look, honestly, you don't need to get 2 or 3 City players. Honestly, apart from Mahrez since the World Cup and De Bruyne over the course of the season, I think Man City assets have been rather a letdown, especially in the defence. So Mars would be my answer. Maybe De Bruyne. I wouldn't be in a rush to get them in, though. De Bruyne and Mitrovic out for Mars and Kane? Yes, but like I've said a few times, De Bruyne out for Mahrez, especially for a hit, I'm not too sure about that. However, if that's your only way to get in Harry Kane, then I think it's worth it. Sell Martinelli for Mahrez, got Bruno and Odegaard with Rashford. Yeah, I think that looks fine. Although for this week, and also bearing in mind Game Week 25, I would rather get rid of Bruno than Martinelli. Could look for Buendia as a cheap option. He looked really good against Leicester, I have to say. He was very unlucky. I think he hit the post twice. He was involved in so much that happened. Should have gotten a few returns, really. I'm not a big fan of him. But, if you were looking for a Villa player, especially in Game Week 28, which is going to be a major blank game week, then I think Buendia could be someone to consider. Is Bailey the best budget midfielder on the wildcard? Plays Everton and Bournemouth in blank Game Week 25 and 28. The thing is with Bailey, a lot of times I look at him, he has a great fixture, he doesn't perform, and he ends up doing well in these kind of tougher games. So, yes, really good point that you make. He's got some great fixtures in those 2 game weeks, but I'm not that confident that he'll return just because the games are pretty promising on paper. So, yes, when you look at it in terms of fixtures, he does look like the best budget midfielder, but I don't know. I'm just not really that convinced by any budget midfielder, with the exception of Matoma, who obviously blanks in 25 anyway. Would you sell De Gea for Ramsdale for a -4 hit? No, I wouldn't do that. If anything, make that move in 25 for free or something like that, but I wouldn't take a hit for a goalkeeper. I'm not that confident of a clean sheet for Arsenal against Brentford, let alone against Man City in 23. I miss Rashford triple captain this week. I probably would triple captain Haaland in 23, but just to let you know, there will be more double game weeks in the future in major and smaller double game weeks. So you don't have to do it now, but I probably would have, in your situation. Same front 8 as you. A, Andreas Damaris, or B, -4 for Tony plus Martial. Or I'm guessing Martinelli 2 and Nketiah KDB. I would go for option A. Yeah, I think that's the best one. Would you take a -4 for Almiron to Odegaard and Cancelo to Ake, or forget about the Man City transfer? Great question, Andil. I would go for... I think I would go for the -4, because either way, you might want to get Ake in 25 like I'm planning to do, regardless. And you're getting rid of someone who's not going to play in the Premier League again this season. So, yeah, I think the -4 is worth it. Are Man City certain, are they absolutely locked in for a clean sheet in 23? No, but I could see one against Villa, and maybe they'll concede against Arsenal. Let's wait and see. I've got Pope, Trippier, Almiron, Bruno, Shaw, Rashford, Tony. I'm in trouble. Well, you've got a lot of blank players, but even in the next 3 game weeks, the next 3 transfers you have to use, you can sort out plenty of your issues there. So, yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. You can keep Pope for now, get rid of him in 25. But yeah, and if you've got Ward, for example, you can just start him. Yes, probably a blank against Arsenal, but still better than nothing. Trippier, Almiron, Bruno, Shaw, Rashford, Tony. I wouldn't be that fussed, mate. You could still get rid of 2 or 3 before, or even 4, if you've got 2 free transfers already. Son Kane combo always wins me FPL mini league during the second half. Yeah, but that's in the past. Heung-min Son looked good against Man City. He looked dangerous, but he just hasn't done enough. And I have to say, there has been an improvement in his performance overall, but is he looking likely to get goals and assists? Not really. Honestly, I think Kane's enough. When I'm looking until the end of the season, at the moment, I think Kane and a defender like Pedro Porro or Emerson Real, whoever starts at the right-back position, or Perisic, I think that's what I'm looking at. A defender and Harry Kane. That's really it. Tony, ideally I'd keep him and just bench him in 25. That's what I'm looking to do at the moment. Yeah, not a bad shout. I think Saka captain could look... I think that could be really good against Brentford and Man City. Thinking of rolling a transfer? Yeah, I don't blame you, to be fair. I probably will make a transfer and then roll in 24 instead. Arsenal, Man City, 3 players, defence and attack. For Arsenal, it would be Zinchenko, Saka and Odegaard, ideally. For Man City, it would be Ake, Mahrez and Haaland, if you were to go for something like that. Bruno to Son in Game Week 24. It's not a bad shout, and I can see why some people are more open to going for Heung-min Son at the moment, but I still haven't seen enough from him. His overall performance has improved, like I said, but it's not enough for me to go for him. Thank you, Yezi. Do you think Tony and Andreas Damaris and Greenwood is good? Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't know if this has been asked yet since I joined late, but what are your thoughts? I mentioned it, but I didn't offer my thoughts really, and I wasn't asked that. I think Jesse Marsch, look, the results have been dire for some time. I think it's like 2 league wins in, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 15 or 20 games. But I actually, whenever I've watched Leeds, I've actually been impressed by how they've played, especially the game against Arsenal. I think they probably should have won the game, actually. And with better quality, they would have definitely done so. So, look, I'm not going to say it's harsh, but I do think if he was maybe given more time, I could see him doing a good job there and establishing Leeds as a mid-table club. Leeds fans will definitely disagree with me, and they know their club much more than I do. They watch them week in, week out. But honestly, I think the way they play, I think I could see something long-term that looks really promising. But I can understand why I got sacked, of course. Will you sell Mitrovic and Martinelli for Nketiah and Mahrez? Yes, I would. Potentially for free, I think that looks good. Enzo Fernandez or Almiron? Almiron still. I don't really see Enzo as a FPL option. Ake for sure for a -4. Look, if I'm being honest, I'm just going to liken it to my situation. What I'm looking to do is keep short and actually do that move in 25 for free. So I'd say no. I would rather keep Botman long-term, I think. I know United have better long-term fixtures, at least until 30, but I think Newcastle still have the better defence, and I'd rather keep Botman. The thing is, I might ultimately sell both and have an 11 that way. Is Odegaard or Saka the best Arsenal midfielder to own? Really close. I think it's 50-50 almost, but I'd rather go for Odegaard. Better for bonus points, as Tommy says, also better in terms of value and stats, although not by much. So I would rather go for Odegaard. I think the one thing that Saka has in his favour are the penalties. In the last game, I think Saka was far more impressive than Odegaard, but yeah, still Odegaard for me. Martinelli and Tony for Mahrez and Nketiah for -4 hit. I think yes, just about I'd go for it. I wouldn't be surprised if Martinelli did well though in 23 and actually scores a similar amount to Mahrez. Martinelli and Tony, yeah, we went through that. Am I considering keeping Bruno this week? I'm not sure if KDB will start. I think KDB will start both, but I don't blame you. You know, if you're not really that confident of a double start in 23, and that kind of defeats the purpose of making that move now. So yeah, keeping Bruno is not a bad idea. I would make a final decision after the Wednesday game against Leeds. If Bruno looks absolutely on it and Leeds are looking very vulnerable, even with an interim manager, then yeah, I'd be tempted to keep him for Game Week 23 and just roll the transfer. Also Mahrez and Nketiah for Tony and Matoma. Well, yeah, I think we just went through that. But yeah, looks really solid. Obviously, I do like Matoma for Game Week 23. And long-term, he's a really good option too. But yeah, looks sensible when it makes sense. I'd go for it. Who should I triple captain? Saka, Odegaard or Haaland? I'd go for Haaland. His effective ownership won't be as high as it was maybe in previous weeks as well, which could be a plus. And I think people are underestimating that Villa fixture. I think they're a really poor team defensively. So yeah, looks good. Will you sell Mitrovic and Martinelli for Nketiah and Mahrez for -4? I think I would, just about, but I'm not a big fan of selling Martinelli for a hit this week, even for Mahrez. My opinion is that if that were to be the case, it won't be this season. It will be maybe next year or something like that. I don't think they'll take points this year. I'm on to Saka, Odegaard or Mahrez. I'd rather go to Odegaard from those three, but look, Saka's really close. When you compare the two, it's neck on neck, let alone Mahrez on his current form. But I think with Arsenal having maybe, well, no FA Cup, no Champions League as well, they can maybe afford to do more rotation in the Europa League. On top of Arteta also, you know, when you look at Arsenal, it's the most consistent starting 11 of any team in the league. Man City are the complete opposite of that at times. So I'd rather go for an Arsenal midfielder, and I'd go for Odegaard. Should I do Duncan Almiron to James and Andreas? No. Honestly, Almiron against Bournemouth, I'd keep him for that. And Nottingham Forest are looking really good at the moment. I'd actually rather have that Bournemouth fixture for Almiron than Andreas. You can always make that move in 25. And as for Dunk to James, not really. Dunk away to Palace, pretty decent. Yes, Reece James and Chelsea, obviously always promising defensively, but Reece James is also coming back from an injury. I wouldn't be that sure if he gets 60 plus minutes. So I'd skip James for now, and I'd do Andreas in for Almiron, if anything, in 25. Odegaard is ultra-nailed. Yeah, I think the point that Tech was making is that in terms of being subbed off, Odegaard's more likely than Saka. And also when you look at the FA Cup, where Arsenal did rotate quite a lot, Saka still started, and it was Odegaard who was on the bench for Fabio Vieira. What do you think of Chelsea assets such as Mudryk and James? I think James is a skip. My opinion is that Kepa's the best option for sure, and he's arguably the best goalkeeper in the game. 44 points since the restart, the most of any goalkeeper. He's the best option for sure. Then I would say a Chelsea defender like Badiashile, someone who will play centre-back, who can get bonus points and is nailed on to get 90 minutes. Reece James can be subbed off very early, and he's also coming back from an injury, so I wouldn't go for him. As for Mudryk, he's the only attacker apart from Felix that I would genuinely consider, but still a wait and see for me. I would rather go for Chelsea defenders, if anything. -4 for Ake. Depends who you sell, but I'm not that confident or that convinced about taking a hit for a City defender this week. Would you sell Kulusevski for someone under 6.3 million like Bailey? No. The only reason I do that, to get Kane, which you just said at the end. Yes, I would do that to get Kane. I think it's worth it, especially against Leicester, one of his favourite opponents. Welcome, Tom. Messed up this week, saving a transfer, not doing KDB to Fernandes. I now have 2 free transfers to use, considering Martinelli to Odegaard and saving a transfer whilst benching Tony. That looks fine. I think I would go for that, especially if you don't know what other move to make, and you can always make another move in 24 or 25 instead too. Start Mitoma or Kulusevski? Mitoma. You think Brighton will blank in 28? It just depends on the FA Cup. So do I think they'll reach the quarterfinals, or will their opponent reach the quarterfinals? I think it's I think they will blank in 28. My current opinion is that they will blank in 28. Is it worth getting Mitoma for Game Week 26 and 27? Honestly, it's difficult because sometimes someone would ask me that and I'll say, look, I'd rather go for an Arsenal City midfielder because they double in 23, don't blank at 25. But you're missing Mitoma's hauls in the meantime. So yeah, it's worth getting Mitoma at any point, provided that you're well set up for Game Week 25, and also assuming that Brighton blank in 28 too, that you have enough cover in those 2 game weeks specifically. So yes, it is worth getting Mitoma before in 26 or 27 as well. Should I triple captain in Game Week 23, Haaland, or wait for Game Week 29? Well, those 2 home fixtures aren't set in stone against Liverpool and West Ham. It all depends on other factors as well. But yeah, I mean, Liverpool is looking like a really good fixture right now. West Ham can be a bit tricky, but City tend to do really well against them. I'd probably still do it now with Erling Haaland. You just know he's going to get more minutes, or you're more confident of minutes in 23 for Haaland compared to Game Week 29 for a provisional double game week as well. So I would rather do it now. Yep. Daniel, I'd do it. -4 hit for that. Bench 1, it would be Mitoma, but very reluctantly. I wouldn't do it if possible. Have Saka, White, sell Bruno, Rashford for Odegaard. I was thinking of Witcher. Sorry, Odegaard or Martinelli. I'd rather sell Bruno, and it would be for Odegaard. Mahrez for Mitoma. Also, thoughts on Martinelli as trusted a threat? Yeah, I would get Mahrez in for Mitoma, although it's not completely necessary, and I do like Mitoma long term. But Mahrez, I think the double and the Fiction 25 is enough to do that. And yes, with Martinelli, I think he's a hold unless you can get rid of him for free to an Odegaard, Saka or Mahrez. And is trusted a threat? Yes, he is. We saw that against Everton and also in the FA Cup game against City. I think that could start to happen from time to time. Some people have been destroyed by the Kepa Edison point swing. Yes, and also a few other things like not going for Shaw, Rashford in Game Week 17. Look, sometimes there's a few things like luck involved, but yeah, Kepa's been extraordinary. Chelsea have been awful all season, but they're still keeping clean sheets. And Edison, Man City, they haven't been awful, but defensively, they're not keeping enough clean sheets to really make them worth it. 2 transfers, any suggestions, says Tom. My suggestions would be Almiron out to... So wait, how many Arsenal players do you have? You've got 2, right? Yeah, I'd do Almiron to Odegaard. And I would also look to do... maybe, if you can afford it, Andres Pereira to Mahrez. Something like that looks very solid, but yeah, I think you can do that as well. Yeah, I think that looks pretty solid. You don't even need to make both transfers. You can just do one, roll the other, and have 2 in 24 again. Brighton play Stoke. Yeah, they have like an 80% chance of qualification based on bookie odds. Yeah, Man City have an easier fixture as well. Yeah, I think Brighton will reach that stage and will probably blank again. But Mitoma is still worth having for Game Weeks 23, 24, 26 and 27. Especially because they could have a double in 26 or 27 as well. Let's not forget that. Planning for Game Week 25. Is it true that Badiashile can't be in Chelsea's Champions League squad? Yeah, he was left out. The same goes for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. A very strange decision to leave out Badiashile, who's starting every Premier League game. I guess the idea is to go for more experience in the Champions League and give Badiashile more minutes in the league because they've kind of written it off already as well. But yeah, he's ruled out for the Champions League. Forget about him in UCL Fantasy. Mitrovic, Shaw, or Botman in 23. The way I would order it is Botman first, Shaw second, and Mitrovic third. But I could be wrong about that. I'm maybe rating Nottingham Forest a bit too much, but they've been in good form recently. If Man City charges is true and they get the points deducted, will it affect their performance? Well, if they get a points deduction this season, it will reduce their motivation because they might not be fighting for first and instead they'll be going for second or third. Or even worse, they could be a bigger points deduction. I don't think there will be a points deduction this season. That's my personal take. I think Man City have good lawyers as well. And I think they will be able to prove their innocence in what they're being accused of. And a lot of the charges are between 2009 and 2012. And there are so many different possibilities and punishments that a points deduction might not even be issued anyway. Wildcard, I'll talk about this in a future video. There's no point going for it now, in my opinion. What transfers are you going to be making? Not set in stone, but I am thinking of Fernandes to Mahrez. If not, I might even roll the transfer. Start Almiron or Stupinian? I would go for Almiron. On wildcard, Bruno or Mahrez? Riyad Mahrez. Who do you think will win the Champions League the Conference League this season? I'm not really... I don't know the ins and outs of the Conference League, to be honest. I don't know the teams that have dropped out all too well, so I'm not so sure about that, actually. Edison's doing my head in. I have him, KDB and Haaland. Think I need to give up on City triple up after next week. I would still keep him. For those that have Edison and a triple up in Man City already, I'd keep the assets you have, really, unless it's someone like Foden or something ridiculous like that. So, yeah, he's pretty good for the next 2 or 3 game weeks, but after that, I would go to a Kepa or Nick Pope. Once again, Stephen, I would play Botman and Shaw. Mitrovic will be last on the agenda. I think they can only pick 3 new signings for UCL squad. Yeah, that probably is the reason why, but he's been really good, to be fair. Shaw has less expected points than Botman. Yeah, and I did rank Botman just about ahead of Shaw. I think Newcastle more likely to keep a clean sheet on paper. They chose attacking players like Felix and Mudryk and their 120 million signing in Enzo. That does make sense when you put it like that, but it does seem very harsh. It's the same for all European competitions. You can only add 3 new signings. Yeah, because they changed the rules. A few years ago, you weren't even able to, or at least they changed some rules. Like if you played for a Champions League club, you weren't able to play for another team in another European competition or whatever. Like Aubameyang moving from Dortmund to Arsenal, he couldn't play for Arsenal in the Europa League. So yeah, fair enough. Actually, I forgot about that, so thank you. Mahrez, Odegaard, Saka and Haaland, and I'm thinking about Kane captain. Really differential off the radar. Against Leicester, honestly... that looks pretty good. It really does. I'd still go for a double gimmick player, though, and I'd go for Haaland ultimately, but it's not a bad shout. Hi, guys. Do you think Lewis will get enough minutes to bring in? I think Rico Lewis will get 1 start in the double game week, but he won't start both, and I could be wrong about that. And ultimately, he will get plenty of starts and minutes over the course of the season, and he can get some returns. But when I look at City defensively, they don't feel with confidence. Lewis has 0 goal contributions as well, so I don't think he's that great. Ake's another one. He's probably my favourite City defender, but he's also not great. I don't think so. Look, he has a lot of quality. He's looking really good at the moment, but I don't think he'll win a Ballon d'Or. And let's wait and see. I could be completely wrong. KDB, if you have him, definitely keep him. If you don't have him, I would be open to bringing him back in. But Mahrez is my favourite Man City midfielder right now, and I'd just about put him ahead of KDB. Mahrez for Bruno or Mount? I'll definitely keep Bruno and sell Mount, mate. Yes, even with Game Week 25 in mind, I would keep Bruno. I think in 23 and 24, he can outscore Mount, over the next 4 or 5, even. So I would do Mahrez in for Mount and then get rid of Bruno in 25, if anything. I think that's the way to go. Man City FFP fiasco will impact the performances. I'm not so sure. And, in terms of punishments, it might be until next year where we see something put in place. They might even be proved innocent. Who knows? I'm just wondering if Chelsea are going to get something like this. I know maybe some people will be technical and say, well, maybe they haven't broken the rules, they're paying in installments or whatever, but yeah, if City are already, on the fire, I also think some other clubs at Chelsea should be careful. Should I start Dunk or White? Ben White with a double game week, I think is quite a sensible thing as well. So we've covered a lot of questions today. We'll be doing a deadline stream on Saturday. Don't forget to tune in for that. Also a UCL fantasy deadline stream. We're going to be back for that for the first time in 4 months next Tuesday. So be sure to tune in for that as well. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, let's try to get to 18,000 subscribers and let's try to get this stream to over 150 likes. It's a pleasure talking to you over the last almost 2 hours, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. Check the links for the description below. Check the links in the description below for the Patreon, the channel memberships, the Discord server, and the FPL League. If there are any more questions now, I'll try to quickly answer them. Oh my god, all of a sudden 7 questions popped up. Mahrez and Odegaard for Rodrigo and Martinelli for a -4. Yes, I would go for it. Although, like I said earlier, a -4 to go from Martinelli to Odegaard or Mahrez isn't... Look, it's not a bad move and it could pay off, but it does put me off a little bit, that hit. For free, I'd definitely go for it. For a hit, I'm not so sure. Do you think Mahrez could outscore Matoma from Game Week 23-25? Yes. I think he will outscore him in that period. And also between 23 and 28. But my main concern with Mahrez is minutes, especially with the Champions League returning. Are you planning to go double or triple C for the double? Probably a double, and it would be either Mahrez or De Bruyne coming in, and it would be for Bruno Fernandes. The alternative is to get a City defender, but I'm not really that convinced or that in a rush to get them in. Start Mitrovic or Rashford. I would go for Rashford as well. Looking forward to Chelsea's points deduction. I don't think it will happen, actually. I don't think Chelsea will even, anything will happen to them. Thank you, Dakakar. Thank you very much for tuning in. City fan Ari Fine noting nothing this season, but if City get hit with fine or points reduction, the same standard will have to be carried out throughout the board. So that's the likes of Barca, Real Madrid, Milan, etc. The thing is, Joe, they are different leagues. So the fine that's being issued now or any of the problems are all league related, so to speak. And City already had this with UEFA. They were proven innocent through that independent body. That independent body can't be consulted now, which does seem strange. But I do agree in principle. You know, Chelsea, Barca, Real Madrid, Milan, all these teams, you know, they should be looked at. PSG. But when we're looking at specifically, you know, oh, this happened to City, it should happen to the others. Really, it's just Chelsea that we're looking at that need to be punished. The others are belonging to other leagues, different rules, different whatever, and they might have gotten away with it already. Sell Shaw in Game Week 24 for Badiashile or Aki. I'd actually rather go for Badiashile. I could see him getting more clean sheets and bonus points and all of that in the long term. So yeah, that would be my answer there. Zinchenko or Gabriel. I think Gabriel is just the more kind of reliable pick, and by that I mean, you know, less injury prone. You know, he's basically always available. Zinchenko is a bit more injury prone in that respect, but Zinchenko's attacking potential, his form as well, I'd go for him right now. Also, his ownership is very appealing. Mahrez for Bruno and Kane for Tony? Yes, I'd go for it. I'm not a big fan of selling Bruno in 23 against Leeds, but it is a good transfer there. Thank you, Soldier Boy. Thank you, Tech, as well. Rishi says KDB and Almiron for Mahrez and Odegaard for a -4. I wouldn't do that. I would not get rid of KDB for a -4. I would get Odegaard in for Almiron or even Mahrez, but I would not get rid of KDB for a hit. Yep, Jesse Marsh was sacked earlier today. I think the reports came out pretty early on and then it was confirmed a few hours ago. And I'm not even so sure if that will have a positive or negative impact for Man United assets in Game Week 22 or 23. But let's wait and see. Yeah, I'm not even so sure. Let me know how to pronounce it. Maybe I just completely botched that. Your Game Week 24 transfer thoughts. Well, provided so look, my original plan, and I discussed this in earlier videos as well, is to get Mahrez in for Bruno Fernandes. If I do that, I'll roll the transfer in 24 and then make 2 transfers or even 1 transfer in 25. So at the moment, my plan is to roll the transfer in 24, but that could change. James for me, I would avoid James for now. If anything, go for Badiashile. He's my favourite Chelsea defender at the moment. Who's more likely to play both games of the double? I'd say Ake, but those two are the most nailed on City defenders. Captain Saka, I've seen a few people say that today. It's not a bad shout, to be fair. Proud to be a Leeds United Norge. Yeah, I've actually seen quite a few people from Denmark, from Norway that support Leeds United. Even Erling Haaland, I believe, was a Leeds supporter, if I'm not mistaken. Your thoughts on Walker getting minutes? In 23, I think he starts 1 game, probably against Arsenal, but I think he'll be benched against Villa. That's just my personal take right now. You know, things can change, of course. I could be completely wrong. Bruno to KDB or Martinelli to Odegaard? I would rather do... That's a good question. Probably Bruno to KDB simply because of the blank in 25 and the double now. Who do you think will win the League Cup final between Newcastle and Man United? It's close. I think Newcastle have a good chance, but I think Man United. I think history will play a part and also the experience of winning trophies with likes of Rashford and stuff like that. I know a lot of players, even Bruno Fernandes, haven't won trophies or that much in their career, but I think Man United. I think they'll have enough, and they've also been in great form. Don't really have a preference, but if I had to pick one, it'd be Coca-Cola. Should I sell Bruno for KDB or Almiron for Mahrez? I'd do Almiron to Mahrez. That would be my preference. I think that's the better transfer anyway, and Bruno has a great chance of returns in 23. Should I do a Kanji to Ben White? I don't think so. I do prefer Arsenal defenders long term, but I wouldn't go from one to the other at the moment. Are you planning to ship out Tony before Game Week 25? At the moment, I'm looking to keep him and bench him in 25, actually. Martinelli to Saka worth it? Yes. For a hit, I'm a bit, it does put me off a little bit, but it is a good transfer, even for a hit. So thank you to everyone once again. Like we said, we have gone for almost 2 hours, and we've gone for all these questions. I'll see if there's anything else quickly before we wrap up. Yeah, thank you, Josh. I appreciate your kind words, and I'll see you in the next stream too. Arnold says, Dylan, Mitrovic and KDB out for Mahrez and Kane. Yes. Once again, I would only get rid of KDB if that's your only way to fund Kane. Otherwise, keep KDB. Odegaard or Saka for Bruno. Very close, but I would go for Odegaard. I do like Pedro Porro, but with Emerson Real's form, it might take some time for Pedro Porro to get into the side, so bear that in mind. What's our target for the year? In terms of FPL rank, if possible, it would be to get into the top 10k. It's going to be really tough. I have made a lot of improvements or a lot of rank gains recently, so let's wait and see. In terms of subscribers and stuff, I think 20,000 would be the big target for the year. Tony to Mitrovic, no, I'd actually rather keep Tony and bench him if anything. I think he's the better option. Martin to Saka or Almiron to Mahrez, we went over it, mate. I would go for Almiron to Mahrez. Thank you, Amar. Thank you very much, and thank you, Twisted Parky. Thank you, Mash, and everyone else. AJ Twin has one more question. Almiron to Odegaard and Tony to Kane for -4. Yes, I think it's worth that, and you can always bring Tony in Game Week 26. Thank you to everyone. It's always a pleasure. Check the links in the description below, and also keep an eye out for the future videos for FPL, and also UCL Fantasy. We've got the team selection video coming out for Match Day 7, and also deadline streams coming back next week on the Tuesday, the 14th of February. So I'll see you very soon, and enjoy the football as always.